It's Not a Boy. Chapter 4. Helen in Pink, Part 1. Our tractors had brought change to our farm, and soon something happened to me that changed my life forever. I had to go to school. My long days at home with my mum and dad on our farm had ended. My mum said that I had learned to be good at things, and I thought that would help me get things on my what I am good at list, and then it would help me get on in the world and better myself. Maybe I could get some more things on my list if I tried really hard, and that was really important to me. My mum must have thought school was very important as well, because she made me a new dress. First we went to the remnant shop in Ripsey, and she bought some material. This was leftover scraps that nobody else wanted. But Mum was so good at sewing that in the end she changed a remnant into a dress for me. She chose brown, and that was nice because it reminded me of my great Auntie Dilly, who always wore brown, and the little wren on the farthing that she gave me. I tried not to think about Auntie Peggy's disappointing wedding dress that was made of brown material. Mum rattled on her sewing machine all that night, and I could hear it as I fell asleep. Rattle, rattle went her machine at first, and then it took off and it went at top speed, and in the morning there was my dress. If you looked carefully, you could see little kids printed on it. You had to look quite hard because the pictures were hidden by the brown colour. There were lots of little kids, and they were all holding hands and standing all round the hem of my dress. "Say children," said Mum, but I never did. Then Mum made me a little hanky to match, and I could push it up the sleeve of my cardie she was going to knit. She knitted me a light brown cardigan to go with my new dress. Well, I called it light brown, but Mum said it was beige. On the knitting pattern there were lovely little girl dancers, all dancing in a circle, and they would go with my dress even more, I thought. But Mum said that these were special dancers. They were called ballet dancers, and I liked them. But the special dancers never got into my cardie. You see, Mum said that the pattern looked complicated, and she hadn't got time to do anything fiddly. We'd just got some new hens, and it was her job to look after them. Even though I locked them up at night for her, she had lots of other things to do as well. She often took me to Hull, and when I went to the hospital for my checkups, and that one time she bought me some new knickers. They ballooned out a bit because they were next size up, so I'd grow into them. At last everything was ready for my day at school. On that first morning I had to get a good wash in the wash house before I could put my clothes on. I had to stand in my big knickers while Mum lathered my face with hard green soap and rubbed it dry with our rough grey towel. Then at last I could put my dress on and my cardie, and finally I was ready. Our school was at Ringham, and Mum took me on the bus for my first day. When we got there, we stood in a long queue of new kids at my classroom door. Mum and me stood waiting and waiting to meet my teacher. We were outside, and I was glad of my new cardie, even if it didn't have the ballet dancers. Every now and again we shuffled forwards. Mum couldn't really spare this time. She had so much work to do on our farm and in our house. The teacher took ages with each kid. I could hear her talking in her high sing-song voice, until at last it was my turn, and I stood there in front of her. Mum started to tell her I'd been very poorly as a baby and that I wasn't very strong yet. "She's been very poorly. Oh, she'll be fine with us. Goodbye, Mummy." And she scooted me out in front of the class while my mum left. There were rows of staring faces. I'd never seen so many kids before. In fact, I'd never seen any kids my age. "Now, class, this is another new little girl," she said. And then she turned to me. "Now tell me who you want to sit near. Who do you know?" Well, I didn't know anybody. I'd never seen any of them before. I knew our Gwendy and Terry, of course, but they were in other classes. Our Katie was at the big school at Ripsey, so there was nobody here that I knew. So I didn't answer my teacher. "Never mind, my dear. He's a nice little girl called Brenda, and she didn't know anybody either when she came to the school." Brenda smiled at me. She was dressed in a grey jumper and skirt, and I sat down on the bench next to her, and my teacher went off for another kid. We had letters of the alphabet lesson first. Everybody shouted when my teacher pointed at a picture with her stick. I'd never heard of such a thing, but there was E for egg, and I liked that one. Our hens laid eggs, so I knew all about eggs. Every hen we had laid one egg a day, and we collected them, hundreds of them in baskets. And we would have even more now Mum had got some new hens. Oops, hold on. They were now for fox. You had to blow through your teeth and not make a sound, just like a fox at night when it's coming to get your hens. Now we were up to H for hen. I knew all about hens, of course. Every night I went round our hen huts in our fields and made sure they were safe. I had to close the pop hole to keep the fox away from the hens. We must never turn our backs on the fox. I knew a lot about eggs and hens and foxes, and now I was quite excited, waiting to tell everybody all about them when my teacher asked. And then she would say in her high sing-song voice, "You are good at hens and eggs and foxes," and then I could put them on my what I'm good at list. But she never asked, and she just kept on going with the alphabet lesson till they got to the end. Then it was playtime. I ran out into the playground and I jumped and shouted at the top of my voice. Then a lad pushed me from behind, so I turned round and I gave him a great big shove back. Then he said he was going to tell. And our teacher came out and he told. He was like that fox, that lad, just waiting to get you when your back was turned. "I thought your mummy said that you were a poly little girl. You didn't seem like it to me, running about and hurting people like that." Her voice was not sing-song now. It was loud and low, like a big bellow bull. She made me stand near some sinks in our cloakroom. I stood there miserably and watched the drip, drip, drip of a tap on my first day at school.